Hey everyone, Mia Paulus here with the Simplicity in Business and Life podcast. Today we're going to talk about all about innovation, and not just innovation from a conceptual business perspective, but why you as an individual need innovation, and why your team needs to be set up to be able to innovate as well. And it is a requirement for business. You have to be in that zone of innovation to survive in this day and age. So with that said, let's go ahead and cue up the music and then we'll get started.
No, it doesn't have to be so hard. No, it doesn't have to be so hard. Business and life made simple.
Okay, so to start, I want to talk about the difference between creativity and innovation and really how they're related. And to start, I'm just going to start with this quote, and it's by Theodore Levitt, and he says, creativity is thinking up new things. Innovation is doing new things. So if creativity is really getting our mind prepped and in that zone of being able to really think of ideas, be creative, right? What does it take to actually get there? And so I remember a long time ago, I watched a documentary. It's probably maybe still on Netflix about creativity. And they talked about how as creatures, like we're wired for creativity. So our inputs and outputs in our brains are farther apart. So we have time to process things before it becomes an output. So by design, we're all creative creatures, right? A lot of times I think we're brought up saying, oh, I'm just not the creative type. Like we think of like performing arts and theater and drawing and art as all the things that are creative. You know, even in marketing, the creative is the graphic design part of it. And so we've been wired to think that, oh, there's creative people and there's not creative people. Right brain are creative and left brain aren't. And like I've like a lot of right and left brain elements for me. And it doesn't matter even if you're like a really strong left brain, like you can still be creative. And here's why. Well, before I even talk about that, I'll go into more depth. But I want to talk, like my son is a good example. He always talks about how he's not creative. But when I think about him, like he is a lot of common sense and he has a lot of ability to just be able to relate with people and talk in a language that they understand and be able to empathize with them in that. And I always tell him like, that is a strength. Like you're able to be a peacemaker and bring people together. And if you think about the world and all the things that have been built and created over time, like when there was nothing, all this amazing stuff that we have in the world before we had all these cameras and these microphones, like all this stuff was created from something. There were elements in the earth that helped create this stuff. And it was humans that were able to take those elements and make them something amazing. But we didn't create things out of nothing. So when we say that I'm not original and we didn't, like people didn't think of things from nothing. Electricity wasn't created from nothing. So really creativity is really finding an element that already exists and applying our brain to it. By nature, since nobody else has our brain and our way of thinking of things, we will be creative in our own way. And that is why like things continue to be implemented and developed and innovated. Like you keep thinking like, could we possibly keep finding new ways and amazing improvements? I mean, because we've already come light years in just a short time. I mean, the airplane hasn't been around very long. And so, but it just shows how capable we are as humans in our brains. And if you think about just machine learning and artificial intelligence and how a lot of the repetitious jobs are getting replaced by machines. A lot of people are fearful of that fact and they're fearful for their job. And to me, I'm actually very excited about it because it forces us as humans to be able to forces us to tap into our creative elements and into our brain, and we all have it. So that means that in order to be able to land jobs, in order to be able to make a living for your family, you have to be in that zone in order to be successful in your business. Like you have to be able to think creatively and be innovative. And so if all we're doing is, again, so actually I'm gonna go back to machine learning. So if let's say that takes away repetitive tasks, as humans, if we keep doing the same thing over and over again, we can kind of get depressed by it. We're actually out of our element. A lot of times you'll hear the word creative block, right? Where we're not able to like think of things. And like, I know for me, like when I'm having to do a lot of CEO tasks and not necessarily be a visionary like I love to be, I start to get that creative block. It's like, I'm out of my element because I love to be in that zone. And so that's what a lot of jobs are going to start to become, is the ability to have to be creative and ultimately innovate. Take those things that you've thought of and turn them into action. And so in business, you think about it, like if you think that something worked in the past and you keep doing that forever, eventually it's going to be obsolete. So you have to be innovative within companies. And so it all starts with the culture you've created in your company. There's this big movement to like ditch your 9 to 5 and start businesses. Well, not everybody's set up to be entrepreneurs, or there's a lot of, it's not easy. Let's just word it that way. So it's not for everybody either. So a lot of people are like, well, machines are replacing my job. I'm a failure if I don't start a business, and so there's a lot of fear even in the entrepreneur world where it's like, can you even find employees anymore? I think it has less to do with the fact that you can't find employees, and less that as business owners and entrepreneurs, we're not setting up our culture for success. We have to be able to create an environment where people can create and innovate. And I actually just said this to my marketing team this morning. I was like, it's amazing how many entrepreneurs we're starting to attract. We always talk about like, oh, they're getting sucked into our model because we'll work with entrepreneurs as like maybe a strategic partner, and then a lot of times they'll want to come on board because it's cool, because it's when we're able to put multiple minds together, it kind of goes to that mastermind concept where you have like 3 to 5 people in a room in your mastermind and how to make things better and improve, and like magic happens. So it's not that everybody should be a solopreneur out there and an entrepreneur. No, the problem is we're not creating work environments that are set up for innovation and creativity, and it's a requirement now. Like I said, like machines are going to keep replacing those repetitive tasks. It's just a fact. We have to get used to that, and we have to adapt. So that means you have to create an environment within your company for creativity and innovation. And so to do that, like you have to I'm actually going to apply innovation to our 4 core values in our company. So our first core value in the center, the company that I founded, is get it done. And I thought about it. I'm sorry. Actually, the first one is do the right thing. And if you think about as human beings, we always want to take the path of least resistance. And so we're wired to where we're not going to, we're going to try to do the most repetitive thing that doesn't take as much brain power. But you have to force yourself to do the right thing, and even if it means going against the path of least resistance. And so that's like the first thing of how to innovate, is like, even if it goes against what seems natural, be willing to go against it, which leads to our second core value, which is embrace the uncomfortable. And kind of along the same lines, okay, you're not going against the path, or you're not going with the path of least resistance. So you need to be willing to push the boundaries of what, can be done. And I love that our core values kind of tied to these innovative principles, because, people like their comfort zone, but in order to really stay relevant as a business, you have to be able to be willing to shift and adapt and just not be repetitive. While process is good, I always like to challenge it, where you don't want to ever become so process driven that we lose our creativity or innovation. So I always like to put it to that test to make sure you're implementing things within your organization to keep that creativity and innovation alive. The third core value in our organization is get it done. And so this leads to really embracing failure. If you think about just innovation in general, like if it requires failing to think of a new way or a better way or a third way, in order to be able to explore what hasn't been done before, like new pathways. It requires taking chances, taking risks. And again, this is all getting out of our comfort zone. But that means in a work environment, you can't have a culture of micromanaging. You can't have a culture of not giving people some rope to explore. It's such a critical piece. And I think the reason why there's this whole movement of ditch your 9 to 5 is because that obviously I love entrepreneurship and I want to embrace that, but I also believe people need to be able to get behind other people's visions. Because if we all just have millions and millions of visions out there, we're not going to get anything done. Like, we need to actually have teams that can work together to make things happen. So that requires us as entrepreneurs and executives to create that environment. And we're not just attracting creative people, you're attracting entrepreneurs to be a part of your organization, because they realize that they can go further faster with you, and aligning with your vision, you can do so much more together. So that's where, don't be afraid to fail. And our fourth core value is build others up, and building other people up. And this really leads to what I define innovation as, which is how to best serve your customers, your employees, and your strategic partners. A lot of times people just say how to best serve your customers, but honestly, I believe it, all of those together working in balance is what makes your company amazing and, again, magical in a sense. When your employees are happy, when your customers are happy, and your strategic partners are happy, like, it all just works. So I always like to not overweight one thing and put those three in balance. So when you're able to serve all of those well and find new ways to serve them, like, that to me is innovation. And actually Tony Robbins uses that term, how to best serve your customers is the most innovative company. And if you just research innovation, it's interesting. It's actually, people are starting to really hate the word. They're like, oh, it's overused and I hate that word. But I think it's underused. I think it needs to be infiltrated into every business. Innovation, and the reason why they don't like it is because they say, well, innovation isn't just coming up with a new feature. It's coming up with a new, like, really the smartphone would be innovative, right? Like, it's not just a feature on the smartphone. It's actually coming up with the smartphone. But I don't like to squash that. Like, because I think, again, it isn't just those brilliant minds that came up with those things that matter. Every employee is going to be creative and innovative in their own way. Because, again, it's applying something that already exists with a unique brain and putting those together to come up with a new way or a new way to stay relevant as a company. So let's see, I talked about machine learning. I talked about how our four core values apply to innovation. And so, again, being original is really a myth in that sense. We're always like, oh, I'm not original. I can't come up with my own ideas. I can't come up with them either. Like, I do much better if I have something to springboard off of. And I think all of us do. And so we need to not beat ourselves up and get us out of that funk mode and be able to believe in ourselves, believe in our employees, believe in our company. And that is really where true innovation stems from. And again, I'm just going to end with the quote that I started with, so you can kind of see how creativity and innovation play. So creativity is thinking up new things. Innovation is doing new things. So if we never start in companies, if we never take risks, we're never going to innovate. Yeah, we'll have all these great ideas in our brain. We're going to come up and be creative. But you got to be willing to start. You got to be willing to take those steps. And a cool just tip I'll leave you with is a guy that was in the military and had been in lots of wars. People would always ask him, like, how do you have the courage to go into battle? And I love this. I always think of this. He's like, it doesn't take a lot of courage to be in battle. It takes those 5 seconds to get into battle. Like, once you start, the momentum plays in. You have a force that pushes you along. So just start. Realize it just takes that 5 seconds. It goes back to my last podcast I talked about with Newton's law. An object in motion stays in motion. And so innovate. I love innovation. It's a requirement for companies anymore. It's a requirement for your team and your employees anymore. The world is changing, and we have to be willing to get on board. So that's all I have for you guys today. I will see you on my Thursday podcast, and talk to you soon. Bye.
No, it doesn't have to be so hard. No, it doesn't have to be so hard. Business and life made simple.